Welcome to log 49. I'm recording this on the 27th of September. It's a Friday and it's the end of my work week. This week has been all about continuing the design and progressing towards the sections that I've set last time. And I quite did some progress, but equally on the weekend before the week started, I had a very unexpected trip. I had the opportunity to go to Athens and enjoy the change of pace and at the same time to witness the archaeological museum where all the statues of the most interesting and intricate parts of the ancient world sort of resided there. And before I start on with my work week, given that was before, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what I witnessed and how that influenced me. So in going into the museum and seeing this incredible collection of statues, different sort of um, time periods which were created, lots of marbles, brass, and in general, the remains of that, and how weathering effect sort of took a toll on the actual statues. I was more curious about how the actual damage from time was imprinted on the statues versus the statue itself. Because in my story and in what I need to understand behind the passing of time is how the passing of time is depicted on the statue, and how if it's sun damaged or if it's because it fell down or because of many other sort of reasons why it's sort of weathered the way that it is, and in how much weatherness is it going to have based on the time that I'm sort of um, depicting and implying here. I have lots of pictures that I'm going to be popping up on the screen so you guys can see and sort of get an idea. I'm not going to speak specifically on the pictures because I think we're going to be taking lots of time. But I'm going to say how the most interesting part about the cracks and how damage was imprinted on the statues was the depth. And what I mean by depth is that with each crack and with each sort of erosion that was depicted and prevalent on the statue, depth on how the shadows and the surface of the crack was depicted is what I gathered the most there. How in all its intricateness of how elegant the crack sort of appeared on the face or in the neck, or how it shattered from the limb, and you could see the sheer amount of work and construction that they needed to make the statue. It was quite something else. I remember the textures that I saw, how marble interacted with both the creator when he was or she was creating it and molding it, and you could see the motions and the carves that they were sort of molding everything into, and how from the smoothness that once was now became this rough and jagged sort of finish, which not only added character to it and sort of the um the concept of time passing, it created an effect that both enhanced the statue but equally made it unique. I've witnessed how many of the statues, especially the faces, were quite preset. And what I mean by preset is that they followed a set of rules, much like our beauty standards, and they were sort of depicting that, and the same sort of anatomy and the same sort of finish. And I sat there questioning why, given that we're seeing different figures in different sort of household or professions or whatever, and or mythical creatures and whatnot. But the faces started having a predisposed sort of finish to them, and I found that very fascinating because as we have beauty standards and what seems to be the norm, I supposed and I assumed that that's what happens then, and that is what happened back then. And how now with the erosion and the breaking of the perfection that was once created, you can start seeing the character behind the statue. I'm going to be pumping up some of the faces that, because they were destroyed, because they were sort of cracked in such a way, it created a very unique design and a very unique sort of finish to it that not only allowed for your imagination to really add the finishing touches, given that the nose was chipped off or the eyes were sort of sunken in a way that takes away the understanding of an eye and it becomes sort of like a textural mess, as if it was burned scars or any defect that perfection begins to sort of take a massive hit. And given that I've been trying to implement that in my statues, the idea how maybe he chipped it off by himself, or maybe it fell down, or maybe he pushed it, like things of that nature, how once it was something beautiful, something organic shape wise, and now with how it broke and how it sort of shattered, symmetry and sort of symmetrical shapes begin to form and create a contradiction between the organicness and the symmetrical. And not only that, but with the textures, we see and imply different things. I remember the statue specifically. I don't know if I have a picture, but if I have, you're going to be seeing it now. So it was like this male figure that it was an outdoor statue, and the way that it was sort of posed, it seemed that the sun would always hitting it from its back, from his backside, and it had like this blackened sort of texture in his back, all through his back, going through his rear and to his legs. And my instinctive thought was like, is this sun damage? Is this what prolonged exposure to sun in this particular sort of alignment, how the sun would sort of move around the statue, created this erosion and created this discoloration? And I sort of found it funny because any human that would stand out in the sun for too long, they will get sunburned or something to show for it. And the statue here had the same idea, even though it might have not been that. It may, even though it might have been sort of like scraped somewhere and created like this discoloration. But this implication of adding this texture or adding this element suggests something, suggests a story, suggests a thing that if you sit down and sort of begin to put yourself in your reality behind it, you begin to form what is the origin. And I quite like that. And I quite like how the broken statues that they were sort of like formed and placed in, how the original position that were placed in, and obviously because they were chipped and destroyed, they only could imply how the parts that they were there, and the missing ones, it was up to the viewer, up to us, and with their help of the illustration to fill the blanks. And not only did I enjoy the imagination of like, imagine how everything fits together, but if you change the perspective of that, if you go a little bit in a low angle view or go through the side and find the perfect angle where everything merges together, you create a new statue, a new composition that exceeds what is being shown. And I've been playing a lot with that in the museum. I spend hours and hours sort of looking at the statues in different perspectives, overlapping each other, so I can see what perspective does to the pieces, because the pieces itself are just pieces that once were part of a figure, but if you align them in such a way, the pieces among other statues, given that they were obviously displayed in a circular or in a room that sort of were following each other and very orderly, um, and if you align your vision and yourself in seeing them and overlapping them, let's say this broken torso with this broken face that was such next to it, and align this new torso with the face that is next to it, you begin to see a different figure, and I enjoyed that quite a lot. And it sort of inspired me to maybe attempt something like that, attempt this story um, element of having the statues that were broken or whatnot destroyed in some way. And given that you're going to be playing a lot with the perspectives and how you're going to view things and how you will be interacting with the composition, and that will lead into different elements and different illustrations, different perspectives. What if I implemented that sort of you clicking at a point in the design, and you having this different perspective to see it from a different perspective, or a specific moment that I'm trying to imply? Because obviously, having to do that, it will take years, having to three-dimensionally depict the room in such a way that if whatever you click, it sort of moves you around. It's not feasible, but the idea of me having a specific sort of section that if you were to find it, you'll see this beauty, this transition. I quite enjoyed that. And it comes back to my previous log of having these breaks, having this ability, and this fortunate sort of I guess it's more of opportunities, because the ticket was really cheap. It was 45 euros to go and come back, and that's because obviously I'm close by. I'm like an hour and a half, but it's um it's something that I wouldn't normally do, and I would sort of focus on my work tirelessly. But this time around, I decided that given that I have a few reasons to be there, and it was a weekend, I wouldn't be missing work. I went for it, and I went on Friday, and I came back on Monday morning, and it felt like months. It felt like a month has passed. Not when I was living it, but when I came back on Monday, when I was recalling, there were so many things that happened on that weekend that usually would have been me sitting down and reading some books, enjoying some company of my friends, and something much more mundane. And now having to take flight, like four, given a flight to go there, a flight to come back, public transport, meeting new people, being in a different environment, enjoying this new scenic sort of view that I wouldn't get before, doubling into history, doubling into the present, and having to think all about that and reflect it in my work, the elements that I understood and sort of inspired me. It's beautiful. And my mind has been tirelessly trying to make sense of it all, trying to make sense of how this inspiration has sort of affected me. Because it's one thing to have a deadline and keep pushing forward towards it and create a standard or a, a submission of what initially was the point. But when you take these types of breaks, when you can afford it in the sense of both time and with money, you begin to not only enhance your work, but enhance your own self and how you view the world. Because as an illustrator, as a storyteller, I need to understand the world as much as I can to depict it, or at least my perspective of it. And my perspective is nothing but, if not limited. I do not know things. Even though I try my best to understand them, I fail. And by doing so, by going out in the world and seeing these remarkable sort of achievements, at the same time how people live their hours of the day, when I am drawing, when I am working towards the stonemason sort of story, I begin to have a deeper understanding on how life is in 2024. And if anything, in this story that I'm creating, given obviously I'm not depicting visually 2024, I'm implying a lot of it. I'm implying a lot of the burden and the struggle that 2024 has, which I find it quite the most important part here, because I'm not only creating this elaborate story that I've formed and has elements of my life and elements of what I've been viewing. I depict the world that is currently around me, and if someone were to see it 10, 20, 30 years down the line, it will have a strong presence of what was plaguing everyone. Everyone in quotations, obviously, I cannot speak for everyone, but the world that I was living in and understood it in the issues that I was exposed to. And I think this is the power of storytelling and the power of creating a story driven theme. It creates an imprint, it creates a freeze frame of what has been affecting people at the time of the year. And I don't know, that really gives me motivation and gives me the ability to feel confident to move forward. So coming back to my studio on Monday and going back to my drawing, I had a lot of that. I had a lot of thoughts that originated and sort of um, dabbled into the what just happened and how do I put this in my work. I have lots of references, and as you've seen with the pictures, I'm going to use some of them in some shape or form, and it's important. It's important to have them. It's important to see. It's important to live. And if if you are hearing this at any time in your life, even if it's now, and even if it's a year down the line, 2 years, 10 years, if you could only get one thing in this journey that I've been going through with myself and sort of opening it up vocally to anyone who is interested in listening, the ability to take time into the profession that you're doing to look forward and look beyond what you learn and what you know is the essence that I think people should sort of emphasize on, because it felt like I was doing the appropriate research of what I needed to learn about statues that I didn't have before. There were countless books there that sort of elaborated on how these statues were built, how this artistry came to be, and how these people view them and valued them or didn't value them, or how everything sort of came to be in such a way that what we see now is the remnants of people that are long gone. And to think that this statue, this figure that we see before, and we see before us, sorry, um, came so long ago, but it remained as a note to everyone who is interested in reading it is magical. And I, when I wrap my head around this thought, it makes me sentimental because it's part of history that nobody can deny, nobody can change, nobody can. The victors cannot write, and the people who were scrutinized cannot take fault or cannot do without. And it's beautiful to see an equivalent moment in history that we all can witness and unanimously be amazed by the sheer ability of humans. And reflecting on that and coming back to my drawing has been informative, and I look forward to how this understanding will change how I will be depicting the statues now. I'm in the composition currently. I haven't been drawing any statues as of late, given that the bottom part of the design doesn't have that at the moment, but it has a lot of different objects and a lot of different textures that I've been enjoying depicting. I've been working towards sections 1 and 3, and in this week I'm going to be sort of finalizing sections 3 and moving on to section 4. That's again the very bottom part of the design. Given the new space and the scale of it, I can add more textures and I can take more time into adding the details that I want. So I spend a bit more time in the objects that I depict, when usually there would have been sort of, let's say, a square and just imply everything with shadow and light. Now it's still a square, but it's bigger, so I can add the details that I want. Maybe if it's paper on the floor, I can sort of make a sort of assumption of visual assumption, sorry, of the scribbles that he has on it, or if it's stained, or if it's a small doodle or something. That obviously won't really matter when you see it in terms of like, oh, I can decipher what it is, but it's gonna give you a suggestion of what this paper is versus the other one that is left, that is on its left, that it's sort of different, but maybe it's on the same book, or maybe it's on the same sort of note that he was writing. And sort of give you a consistency that, and I believe in and a credibility that really gives it life and gives it its voice that I couldn't really do specifically in the smaller designs. So yeah, the measurements that I've done for the week before I left, I I caught up on, and today, after I finish the log, I'm gonna do some more measurements for the week, as much as I can and as much as I can my energy allows me. So the week can be sort of scheduled in. This is what I have to do. I have to finish all these measurements and sort of have a smooth transition. Even though in this month, when did I start the design? I started it on the 4th of September. I it took I'm like 3 weeks in, and it seems that I haven't done a lot, but I've been learning a lot. I've been reevaluating a lot and changing things. So I feel that in if anything, this design is going to be one of the most important ones visually, and anyway, it is the main chapters sort of design. So they're going to be striking and visually perplexing. So it's hard for me to sort of finish it in an orderly way, given that I'm taking lots of different breaks of living life and enjoying the essence of that. I know that the deadline is coming up in not too long now, and I still haven't done a lot of the other two designs and even finished this one. But I'm taking it in a very natural way, and I accepted it that if I cannot make it in December, I'm gonna make it in January or February, and that's okay, because the important part is the beginning and the foundation of the story to be done right. So anyone who I'm gonna be explaining this to, or sort of allowing allowing this to gain some traction, so I can line up an exhibition or I can line up things for it when it's done, I need to have a very strong base and as clear as I intended it, rather than, oh, I didn't have time, I'm gonna like leave it behind. No, I'm gonna do it properly. And we're talking about like an extra month or two. I don't think it's gonna take more, because once I'm done with the two designs, the major designs, then it's all about the extras. And the extras are as little as or many as I wanted them to be, and I can do a lot of them in a day. And yeah, and then it's the piling up together of all the elements and all the ideas. And I'm looking forward to that, as I've done only a prototype that I once showed here, but I haven't doubled into that afterwards, so that will be interesting. But yeah, This was log number 49, and many things have changed since the first few logs. And not in my wildest dreams would I think that it would turn out this way when I was studying this theme. But I accept the changes, and I accept the flexibility that I need to have in order to depict something that is real, something that can be believable and authentic both to myself and to the perspectives that I have and have communicated with people. I think that's very important to transfer to everyone who is going to read this and experience this story. Well, I'll be seeing you the next week or whenever you come back and listen to the next log, and let's see how my mind and life's changes changes me as well. Take care.